there's probably a ton of questions that I could ask you. So now, when you stop for the night, where do you stay?
Right, good question. All right, what I usually do is camp. I have in my cart, I have a sleeping bag, the minimum. I only have 2 changes of clothes because you can't take everything you need to because everything adds weight to it. So what I usually do is when there's a town, I will stay in a town, stay in a motel, shower and shave and all that stuff, and then I take off in the morning. And especially out west, there's been great distances between these towns. Now, here in Illinois, the towns are coming more readily. So food is not a problem, water is not a problem. But I can tell you, crossing Idaho, eastern Oregon, Wyoming, it was something I really had to plan ahead to make sure that I had that. So I slept out with the sagebrush and junipers and coyotes for much of the time. I would say 75% of the time I've camped out, 25% I've been in a motel.
Okay, and I mean, how do you keep nourishment? I mean,
good question. A lot of power bar, nutrition sort of things. I'm very tired of these ham and cheese sandwiches that you get at the little gas station sort of delis. It's nice to have real food. And I have freeze-dried food. That sounds pretty awful, and it can taste awful after a while, but they actually do pretty good stuff with that. And so I always try to get some fruit and some vegetables that I can throw in there, but apples weigh a lot, okay? Nectarines weigh a lot, and again, every little bit just kind of weighs you down. So it's always a balancing act.
okay. Do people donate money?
Yep, that's another good question. I would say that people, like I said, it's softened my heart. People come by and they'll just roll their window down and they'll see the sign, God bless you, and hand me $5, $20. I had a man near Bedford, Iowa, that gave me a $100 bill, and I said, are you sure? He said, of course I'm sure. So again, that's what's so nice about this. And it's a non-political message. And one of my biggest disappointments, because I have had some disappointments, has been the public school system. Now, I want you to understand, again, I just finished in June 36 years as a teacher. I taught 5 years in Ohio, 31 in Oregon. But the schools are so locked down today. It's very hard for me to plan ahead 2 months, say I'm going to be at your junior high or your high school, and may I speak? And so usually I have a few days notice. But they're so suspicious anymore with the political environment that I have yet to have a school welcome me in. I've been rejected probably half a dozen times. And so I don't want to give up on that goal, but as a teacher, it's pretty natural. I don't have a lot of rehearsal I have to do to go in and speak to kids, But again, it's not like it's my own school, and I understand their suspicions. Schools have the doors locked nowadays for overuse, so that's been my biggest disappointment. But,
What do they have to say, like, when you show up?
Well, one sad response I got in Minden, Nebraska was, well, we're very concerned with our test scores. And that speaks a lot to where the schools are going nowadays. And I've seen it. I've been in school one way or another since 1958. And if the schools go so far that all they're doing is teaching to take tests, and that's the yardstick we measure everything by, then we're losing the heart and soul in public education, and that's a whole nother subject. But, one guy he used to ask for more lead time, and most people really don't get back to you. I've sent emails and phone calls, and I tried to get right here in Decatur, and it was a little iffy. They had to talk to the superintendent, so I think with the political environment, they think, what's my message? Am I going to say something that's political and a parent will complain? But I assure everybody, and you really, that my message is from the heart, and it's these things that I've been talking about again, because I just want everybody to appreciate it. It's a grand story.
Okay. Anything else that I missed?
I would just like to thank you for coming out and interviewing me. Not so much because I want to be on television, but anything like this is promoting an interest. If I give you a copy, which I'm going to do when we're done here, and you look these over and say, well, I forgot about that one, or I forgot about that one. I mean, to me, the most important is number 9. You say, well, what is that? And that's what I think it's et cetera amendment. And what it means is just because your right isn't listed doesn't mean that you don't have it. So I'm not saying I'm for or against this. Let's say that you feel the government should way the founders said, we can't cover it all. So number 9 means etc. You have many more rights than those that are listed. I would say one more little disappointment I've had is probably the Second Amendment. I want you to know I'm a Second Amendment supporter. My wife is not. We choose not to. It's the firearms thing. And that is the only one I hear about from people. I'll give you one last little story on this. I was in Bend, Oregon, and a woman came up to me, rolled a Cadillac SUV, rolled her window down, and said, "What are you doing out here in the middle of nowhere?" Well, I explained why I was there, and she was kind of aggressive, and she said, "How do you feel about the Second Amendment?" I said, "Well, I support the Second Amendment, you know," and we talked about that, and I said, "But how do you feel about the others?" She looked at me and said, "Well, what are they?" Well, at that point, I gave her a copy and went walking on down the road. But that's my point, that, I mean, it's more than the Second Amendment. It's the First Amendment and the Fifth Amendment and the Sixth Amendment, and what are in those things. I started a scholarship in my school several years ago for any kid that can memorize these things. I was giving them $50, and they put their name on a plaque. This is how much it means to me. So this is why I'm going across the country. I'm celebrating 36 years of teaching and retiring, and again, I hope to go to Independence Hall and finish in Atlantic City, and then I'm supposed to remodel the house. That's the deal with my wife. Okay.
Okay. So after you're all done, you're just gonna, are you gonna walk back, or?
Well, no, I'm not gonna do the Forrest Gump thing. What I am gonna do, I'll take my card apart, I'll send it UPS, I'm gonna fly back, and I do, as I mentioned earlier, I do historical presentations for schools and civic groups and things like this in Oregon, and I'm just going to continue that because my message hasn't changed, and I just want people to, I feel like somebody that's on a religion, you know, and somebody wants to spread the word. Well, this is mine right here, and it's just so important. And again, if we all knew more about it, I think we would be appreciative and we would regard these things a little bit more readily than we seem to be doing in these modern days. Because these are questions we have to ask ourselves. What does the Fourth Amendment mean, the right to privacy? We have security cameras in all the intersections of the towns now, and there's not a discussion that takes place. Now, I'm not saying I'm for or against that, but if they invent technology, then we should, as citizens groups, say, do we want this or do we not? And if we all decide that yes, we do want those, then hey, power to it, you know, let's have those things. But that discussion doesn't take place. See? They just show up, and like they said earlier, like the hairs on your head, there's one missing, and then the children grow up and they think that's the new norm. And I had a young man I was trying to interview. I thought, well, old people, well, elderly people, are much more readily talking to me. I said, well, get some young people that do. This guy was swilling a beer, and he said, you know, he says, buddy, you just have to learn to roll with it. That's my philosophy. You just got to roll with it. Well, I understood what the kid meant, but also that's quite scary to me too. Again, these are time-honored values. People talk about freedom. What is freedom really? Freedom has become a cliche, in my opinion. I know we all wave this flag around with freedom on it, liberty. These are old-fashioned words. But really, when you ask people what does that mean, they have a hard time answering. Because that's been one of my little deals here is I'm going to poke and prod. What does freedom mean to you? And people almost start to squirm, like you ask them about religion, like I'm the preacher, you know how people get sometimes. And it's not an easy question to answer, like I said, but we need to have these discussions. Because what happens is like you're in a drift boat, out there fishing, you're not even aware that you're moving, then you wake up one day and you're here and you used to be there. And, you know, if we do move, and it's inevitable, it's, you know, I have to keep up with monitors, I would rather be a planned movement than just something that happens to us. This, again, it doesn't matter your politics, so I support all the people. My big worry or concern is apathy. You know, the people, well, I don't care.